We're reading Eruption. We're in the second quadrant. We're reading with permission from Scholastic. 2:46 p.m. Chase made it back up to the road, but it hadn't been easy. It was going to be even harder for the truck, but if anyone could get it up there, Tomas could. The road was covered with half an inch of fine gray ash. Sweat dripped down the back of Chase's neck from his helmet. He took it off, pulled down his respirator, took a long drink of water, and then rinsed the ash off the safety glasses. The glasses had helped, but the stinging of the ash was still finding its way into his eyes. He put his Bluetooth back into his ear and hit redial on the sat phone. Cindy answered first. "Are you on the road?" "Yes. A lot of ash up here. I'm going to drive down a mile or so and make sure there aren't any more landslides, so stay put. I'll give you a call when I know." "What landslides?" His father's voice was in his ear. Chase had forgotten that everyone could listen in. He'd forgotten again. He told his father and everyone else about the landslide and their plan to get around it. "How much ash is up there?" his father asked. "Half an inch on the road. But it's not falling. It's kind of swirling around in a breeze." "Same here," his father said. "There might have been an eruption and an earthquake. You need to get up to Lago. The sooner we get off this mountain, the better." Chase could tell by the tone of his father's voice that his father's gut barometer was on high alert. Chase's gut barometer was too. The afternoon light filtering through the suspended ash was ghost-like. "I wonder if this is what it would look like after a nuclear explosion," he thought. "Are you wearing your respirator?" his father asked. "Yeah, and some eye protection Tomas rigged up." "Keep a lookout for circus animals," Nicole said. "What?" "I found Chico wandering around in the woods." "The chimp?" "Yes, he was scared to death. I don't know if any other animals escaped, or if they did, whether they're anywhere near you, but it's possible. We looked at the map, and Chico was 3 miles from the highway." "What other kind of animals are you talking about?" "Lions and tigers and bears, oh my," Mark said, "along with some other less aggressive things." Chase switched over to the phone's GPS screen. He was probably less than 5 miles from the highway as the crow flies, or as the tiger runs. "The only easy day was yesterday," he said. "What did you say?" his father asked. "I gotta go." Chase ended the call, pulled the Bluetooth from his ear, and put on his gear before getting back on the quad. He continued down the road, smiling. Let him think about what I said for a change. But the smile didn't last long. He rounded a corner and put the brakes on so hard the quad nearly flipped. Sitting in the middle of the road was a gray poodle, the size of a small domestic cat. At least, Chase thought it was a poodle from the way its fur was cut. And very few wild animals have blue bows tied to their ears. The poodle was holding up its right front paw as if it were injured. If Chase hadn't slammed on the brakes, he would have run right over the tiny dog. He got off the quad, squatted down, and called the dog to him. The poodle didn't move. "You probably think I'm an alien," he said. He took off his helmet, his glasses, and the respirator. "Is that better?" The poodle still didn't move. "Apparently it isn't better. Look, we're on an active volcano. We need to get—" The ground started shaking violently. Chase dropped to the ground and covered his head with his arms, wishing he'd kept his helmet on. The upheaval and deafening roar seemed to go on forever. When it finally stopped, Chase was still shaking, even though the ground was still. As he struggled to catch his breath, he felt something rubbing against his thigh. He glanced down. The trembling poodle looked up at him. Chase picked up the dog and settled it in his lap. He started to pet it and discovered that the poodle was not gray. Its white fur was covered in ash. 3:04 p.m. John Masters felt the steering go and hit the brakes. The truck slid sideways for 20 feet before it slammed into a tree, crunching the passenger door. The ground continued to shake for a couple more seconds and then stopped. Chico had his arms around Nicole's neck so tightly he was nearly choking her. "That was a bad one," she said. Mark rubbed the bump on his forehead. "I'm getting a little sick of earthquakes." John was getting sick of them too, but this last one had felt a little different. "That might have been an eruption." "Perfect," Mark said. "Are you okay?" Nicole asked Mark. "Just a small concussion, but thanks for asking." "I'll check the truck." John put on his respirator. "I'll go with you," Nicole said. John shook his head. "No, you two stay here. No use all of us going out in the ash." With difficulty, Nicole managed to peel Chico's arms from around her neck. They were less than half a mile from the highway. She hoped there was nothing wrong with the truck. We're so close, she thought. Her phone and Mark's rang simultaneously. Nicole put hers on speakerphone so she and Mark could listen together. Is everyone okay? John asked. Tomas and I are fine, Cindy said. We're waiting to hear from Chase. I'm fine, Chase said. Tomas and Cindy, the road looks clear, so you can start making your way up here. Are you listening in, Nicole? I'm here. Does the show have a dog act? Yes. Why? I think I have one of the performers in my lap. It's the size of a big squirrel. White? It was, but now it's ash gray. It has blue bows in its ears. Pepe, Nicole said. What's he doing all the way over there? And why is he loose? And why is he by himself? I have no idea. I'm just glad it was a dog in the middle of the road and not a lion, tiger, or bear. Oh my, Mark said. Funny, Chase said. I'm going to head up the road with the pup and figure out where he came from, or get to Lago, whichever comes first. Are you on the highway? No, Nicole said. We just hit a tree, and I'm not sure if we're going anywhere. The truck's fine, John said, just a little dented. We'll be back down to the highway within half an hour unless we have another earthquake or eruption. Everyone stay in touch. He ended the call. Chase picked up the dog and looked at the little poodle's paw. The pad was split, but the ash in the wound seemed to have stopped the bleeding. I'm sure that's sore, but I think you're going to live. Chase had never owned a dog. His mother had been allergic to both cats and dogs. He always wanted a dog, but not under these circumstances. He got on the quad and put the pup on his lap. Let's go see what's up on the road. A few minutes later, he saw two men. They had rags wrapped around their heads to keep the ash out. Chase slowed down so he wouldn't stir up too much ash. He stopped the quad about 20 feet away, removed his helmet and respirator, and then walked up to them, carrying the dog in the crook of his arm. When he reached them, the dog started growling. The two men looked at the poodle as if they didn't know what it was. At first, Chase thought they might be with the circus, but judging from the dog's reaction, they couldn't be roustabouts. They'd know the dog, and he would know them. They must be from Lago, Chase smiled, wishing Cindy was with him so she could talk to them. Hablas inglés? The men shook their covered heads. I'm afraid that's about the end of my Spanish, Chase said. One of the men pointed to the quad. Yes. He turned his head to look at the quad. I came up the road on... Chase's eyes rolled into their sockets. He fell to his knees, and his world went from ash gray to pitch black. So think about it, what just happened. 3:33 p.m. John pulled the truck onto the highway with a satisfied sigh. Not too bad, he said. Yeah, Mark said, we only almost died twice. We'll go to the bridge. If we don't find them, we'll turn around and head back to Puebla. But first, I'm going to rewrap the air filter. This time, Nicole and Mark got out with him to stretch their legs. Nicole wandered over to the edge of the road carrying Chico. Suddenly, she screamed. John and Mark ran over to them. At the bottom of a ravine was a stream. A smashed semi-trailer marked with the Rossi Brothers logo lay across it. Scattered around the trailer were 4 dead elephants. Nicole had turned away from the terrible sight. Rosie, Haneko, Mitu, and Hugo, she said. Hugo was the father of Pet's calf. Mark turned his camera away from the carnage as well and put his arm around Nicole. Carnage means awfulness. John was equally horrified, but he did not turn away. He looked up the road towards the bridge and saw where the shoulder must have broken off and fallen into the ravine. He ran back to the truck and grabbed his climbing rope and harness. What are you doing? Nicole asked. I'm going to check it out. How many people ride in the tractor? 2, but there might be a 3rd riding in the sleeper. Do you think they're still in there? We'll see, John said, though from the look of the wreckage, he was certain no one had gotten out. The real question was, were they still alive? What do your mom and sister drive? They have a truck camper. John was relieved to hear that. Can you drive a quad? Sure, Nicole said. I want you and Mark to head up to the bridge and see if anyone else has had an accident or is stranded. He pointed at the ravine. Now a ravine is a big drop-off. The circus logo on the side of the trailer is pointing away from the bridge, which means they were headed to Pueblo when they went off the road. They'd probably turned around when they saw the bridge was out. What made them go off the road? John pointed up the road. Looks like they were in the right-hand lane coming around that curve. Maybe another quake, or maybe the elephants got scared and rocked the trailer and the drivers lost control. You can see where the pavement fell away. If you find something, let me know. If I find someone alive down there, I'll call you. He looked at Mark. I need you to use your eyes without your camera. No problem. Is your head okay? Mark smiled. The only time you have to worry about my head or any other part of my body is when I'm not complaining. John returned the smile. That's what I figured. Back in his SEAL days, he'd had a team member just like Mark, a guy by the name of Raul Delgado. Raul used to constantly whine and complain, but when it was crunch time, he was the best operative they had. John had heard that Raul was now Commander Delgado, head honcho of SEAL Team 1. As Mark and Nicole offloaded the quad, John rigged his ropes. It had been 15 years since he had rappelled into a ravine, but he found his hands working the line and harness as if it were yesterday. The only easy day was yesterday. Where had Chase heard that? It couldn't be a coincidence. When he'd left the SEALs and married Emily, John Masters had put all that behind him. It wasn't until the lightning strike that it had all come back. He had never even thought about re-enlisting. He had even thought about re-enlisting. But where would that leave Chase? Chase came to with a hammering headache, ash and bile in his mouth, and something tickling his face. His eyelids fluttered open. The thing tickling his face was the puppy's tongue. He didn't move as he tried to put together what had happened. He'd been talking to two guys with rags wrapped around their heads. One of them had pointed at the quad. Chase had turned to look and the lights had gone out. He sat up very slowly, but not slowly enough. He threw up. He thought his head was going to explode. He felt the back of his skull and discovered a hard lump the size of a chicken egg. He looked up the road. The quad was gone. He felt around his neck. The respirator was gone. So was his helmet and his go bag. He felt his pockets. They were turned inside out. They had taken the sat phone and everything else. In a disaster, desperate people do desperate things. That was one of his father's warnings. Well, what was I supposed to do? Blow right by them without stopping? He wished he had now. The dog barked. He looked down at him. Yeah, I know. You had him pegged. I should have listened to you. The dog barked again. I'm not picking you up. If I bend over, my head might roll off my neck. The dog did a backward flip. Nice trick. I'm still not picking you up. Chase looked at his watch. He had been out cold for 5 minutes.